Hello, everyone. How you doing? So welcome to Hockeybuzzcast. This is Kevin Allen, our buddy.
Hi there.
We are in Toronto still.
I don't think I know you. Have I seen you before?
Yeah, we're in Toronto for what we think is one more day. As of now, it really doesn't feel like possible that we could be. My head is so much put it together that I'm leaving tomorrow.
Well, I'm already committed. I'm basically packed. I've been here a couple of weeks, and I've seen this Canadian team, which I believe is one of the best Canadian teams ever. And I just don't see any possible way that Team Europe could beat them. I mean, in the last game, it looked like the perfect storm. The Team Europe played what Kuchar called its best game, and I don't know that Canada could play much worse or more. More inconsistent than it played in that last game, and then and it still wasn't enough. When they really needed to get that goal in the third period, Crosby went to work behind the net, got it done, and then everybody said, "All right, now it's in the book," because they weren't going to give it up. So
I have the feeling, Kevin, that if it does go, if by some miracle Europe wins tonight, and it does go to a game 3, that the press box will be virtually empty at the Air Canada Center. Because I'm being a little facetious, but I'm just saying I think everybody is. I mean, I listen to the commentary on Toronto radio and some of the the national people in Canada, and they're not slamming the tournament because it has had some uplifting moments and had some compelling hockey. But I think ever since it was Europe and Canada, it just seems they want this over with, and if it's not over with tonight, then I think I think the players want to get back to their teams, and the media just wants to get back to the exhibition season and then the regular season.
Yeah.
Well, what I would say about it is that the matchup just doesn't have a sexiness to it.
Right.
Like the tournament has been an excellent tournament, and the games have been compelling. The North American team was a lot of fun. Obviously, a big disappointment with the way the Americans had played. But this Canada performance really has been so impressive that's been worth the price of admission as well. But the issue is it's just hard to get excited. And then, from the American standpoint, and we knew this going in, but I think it's even made doubly hard by the fact that we haven't established the connection between the fan base in the World Cup. And we got to go back 8 years, and before that it was 1996. So over the last 20 years we had only had one World Cup of hockey, and so we don't have that connection yet. So now we're trying to plunk it down in the middle of a pennant race in college football and pro football, and we're saying, okay, here it is, the greatest talent in the world all playing together. And in America we've struggled to sort of make connection. Now over time that will get better. And it would have been better if there is a sexier matchup in the final.
Yeah.
But you don't always get what you hope to get, and you got to take the good with the bad. And then the tournament itself has been fine. Like the competition has been significant and so forth. So it's like one of those things that just over time you're going to have to judge this tournament 10 years from now or 12 years from now. Not right now.
Right.
Well, Russ sent out a tweet yesterday with the ratings for Game 1, and I know it's like you said, it's in the middle of the baseball pennant race. You got football, you've got a few other things going on, but it got a lower rating than Ink Masters and the Food Network and things on Bravo. It was just like, this is. I understand that in the U.S., and I don't think it's a niche sport. I think it's one of the main 4 sports, but I just don't think that if it was USA Canada, I think the ratings would have been better. It's not a compelling tournament right now. Maybe we have to get back to that every 4-year thing where it gets to be compelling. But I was disappointed. I thought it would get better ratings than that, even if it was Canada Europe.
No, I think so much of it has to do with the competition. I think that this tournament has been up and down. There have been moments when after that North America Russia game or that North America Sweden game, we were just like, this is a great tournament. It's had this really emotional highs and lows. And if this was North America Canada, I think it would be killing it. But
well, I mean, I'm not actually surprised by the ratings. I didn't anticipate they'd be very good, simply because for all the reasons that I mentioned. You know, the timing of it, the fact that it really doesn't have much. You know, essentially now you've got to be probably 40 and older to sort of appreciate the sort of Canada Cup / maybe even 50 and older World Cup of hockey tradition.
Sure.
And I think that plays a role in it as well. And, you know, look, ratings in America for hockey just don't measure up. I mean, this is not the first time that hockey ratings have been, you know, in the home improvement show category. And, you know, I mean, we've, you know, I remember one point reading, I can't remember how many years ago it's been, where, you know, PBA bowling, you know, beat it one year, you know, you know, and it's just like one of those things. And the one thing that I think should be always brought up, like, I don't believe for a minute that the NHL believes that the World Cup's going to replace the Olympics. You know, those guys are too smart to think that. But I think they want to make some inroads. But the difficulty is this. If anyone who thinks that the World Cup of hockey could somehow resemble the World Cup in soccer, you know, is really misguided, because the difference in that is like America has limited interest in soccer as well. But the World Cup of soccer has a very expansive pool of teams from a wide variety of countries. And in America, we're still such a melting pot that it's easy for groups of people to say, hey, my great grandmother on you know, came from you know, Norway, and Norway is in, so I'm going to root for Norway. They can identify. We have a limited number of countries, and you know, if you don't have any relatives from Finland or Sweden or Russia or the Czech Republic, you know, you're not going to get into it unless you're a hockey fan. So you know, there's all those factors as well. But you know, if we didn't have social media, I think most people who watched this tournament would have said, hey, this was terrific, because the hockey was outstanding, I felt, and it was played at a very high tempo, and it was a lot of fun to watch, and so forth. But now, because we can all, you know, explore our feelings and talk with others about it, then it's really easy to say it wasn't a great tournament. But it was a great tournament.
This is the best collection of hockey players ever put together to play in a tournament. I mean, that is flat out. I mean, this is, when you think about, there's very few players that aren't playing in the NHL. And the Olympics have tons of players.
There's no filler. There's no filler in this tournament.
So it's completely solid. I think 6 teams, like I said, I think 6 teams would be better. I think they should get rid of the Czech team and have them have to play in.
I think most people want 8 teams. Like, to me, it feels like you need 8 teams to have a tournament. I would say, though, that the people that I've talked to, you know, from fans to officials, you know, like the nationalistic concept better. As fun as the North Americans were, and as and you know, you should stand and applaud what Team Europe did. I think people still love nationalism element to the tournament. So I would think, I've already heard people suggest that maybe there'd be a play-in tournament that the teams of Slovenia and you know, Denmark and Norway would have a play-in to try to get into the future World Cups.
Go give it a World Cup feel, you know, and then you could even relegate teams out, you know, and they have to play in next time around if they come in last place, something like that. That would be.
The problem with that is, and I know Mike wants to talk here, but the problem with that is we all forget that in the Olympics, what was the biggest complaint? We had those poor games, those bad games where, you know, NHL players had to go against countries without, and you know, you had to wait 3 or 4 days to get a good game. Right. You know, so you know, you can't have it both ways.
That's true.
So if you want a competition in every game, it's going to have to be a little contrived, or if you want the pure nationalistic aspect of an international tournament, you have to accept that you're not going to have 8 teams of comparable ability.
Right.
Well, I mean, and I've heard the same things, Kevin. I mean, just in terms of social media, that, you know, one idea would be to have 12 teams have a play-in of an 8 teams eliminating down to 4, and then those 4 teams would play in an 8-team tournament. You know, and I think that that makes sense. And the thing is, it's like, I mean, I understand that they want to bring compelling teams, and that maybe Slovakia or Slovenia are not going to provide great enough competition. But Team Canada lost to Switzerland in 2006 in the Olympics. Belarus beat Sweden, so it's not impossible for these.
Yeah, they can win one game, but they can't win the tournament. Although saying that, I mean, Slovakia got to the semis, didn't they, in 2010?
Yeah, they did.
So, I mean, I guess it's possible, but you can always pull off one upset, but it's hard to sustain that. And to be honest with you, those upsets generally, in my opinion, throw a tournament out of whack.
Yeah. They can.
When one, because of the way the seeding goes, one upset turns out to be a major advantage for some team.
Right.
I remember in 2002, after the Belarus upset, it ended up USA had to play Russia, and I can't remember who Canada played, but they really benefited.
Yeah,
They played Belarus.
They played Belarus, right?
Yeah,
they did.
And they weren't going to end up. Obviously, Belarus was not going to pull off two miracles in the same tournament.
Right.
So, and you see that all the time with the World Championships. There's some crazy result, and then all of a sudden, instead of you finish second, you should have an easy pass. Suddenly, you're looking over across from you, and you got Ovechkin, staring down at you. So.
Yeah, that's what you're saying. And I mean, you wrote a really good article on Kruger, the coach from Europe. He's one of more interesting stories about Team Europe. So, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, Kruger, I think is a great story. I think he has kind of stolen the show. He's really, the storyline here has been. He's the one that got away, and now it's forced us all to look back at what the Oilers did. Now, I like Todd McClellan there right now. I think he's a quality coach. But when you look back, and now we're looking back going, he had given that team its highest finish in 10 or 11 years.
Right, he did.
And then they fired him. And
via Skype.
Via Skype, yeah. And now he comes back, and now he's not even in our sport anymore. And now we listen to him, and we're going, why isn't that guy with us anymore?
Right.
Like, he clearly can coach because, he's got this team that shouldn't be unified, playing well choreographed hockey. Yeah. And
in a short period of time.
And the players are raving about him. And he comes in, and I said this in my story. Someone asked him about his thoughts on how this tournament has played out. And his answer was 2 minutes and 42 seconds yesterday. I timed it. And it was all interesting. He started out by talking what a great personal experience it had been for him. And then he boiled down the whole issue about, that the PA and the NHL has to decide, is this a tournament about marketing the game or making money or both?
Right.
And he says, once they decide that, then you can decide whether or not you want to bring back Team Europe, Team North America, because his basic undertone was, if you're trying to grow the game, then bring back Team Europe because that affects 8 countries.
Right.
And he said, he's heard back from people in France and multiple countries where he thinks it'll have a trickle-down effect.
It will.
So,
I agree.
Anyway, that's
we're not really tracking, and the ratings are what they are. But I also am trying to find out more and more about how they're tracking the ratings, because there are so many people watching this on apps and things like that, and I don't know necessarily if those are being tracked.
I don't know.
I mean, more and more that's what's happening, and usually they're not tracked the same way. And usually, in my history, I know there are some people who have television shows that want them to get tracked that way. There's a big Nielsen is just, I think, in the last 6 months started this thing where they have some kind of Nielsen rating thing for online watching, like Hulu and Netflix and things like that. So I would not be surprised if this is not really being tracked properly.
Well,
I'm pretty sure that you can quantify how many people not download the app.
But it doesn't count into the ratings, like the actual ratings that you see. I mean, the NHL needs to get on that and say, okay, let's look and see how many people. And maybe I'm talking about the difference between 250,000 and 280,000. I don't know, but I'm just if it's 250,000 and 400,000, then it's a difference. That's what I don't know.
Well, I think that's actually an interesting observation. In my world, we count clicks on stories, and in the beginning we were just counting what happened through the mainstream style computers, and then fewer people were on phones, and now it's completely reversed. Now what happens on the phones, and I believe it took us a while to kind of sort out what that real number was.
That
we're actually getting to our stories via the phone. So
and that's still they're still trying to figure out how to track that. I mean, it's not exact, and they will get there, but I don't know what these ratings. I don't know, and they might be including them. They may already be there. I don't know, but I think Kruger's been fascinating to listen to because he really is like a no nonsense guy, and what I like about him is he comes out and says flat out, we're not as good as Canada, but we'll see what happens. We're gonna go out there and do that. He's really direct.
Well, and he does it in such a clever way.
Yeah.
Like his approach of this, we're the first team in hockey history that had no past and no future.
Right.
Like that is an incredible approach.
Yeah.
And it was something that the players related to. Like I've heard that brought back up by the players 3 or 4 times from different players talking about that. And he got his players to buy in, and it's pretty clear he's a player's coach. That players like playing for him. I just found out, I didn't know this, but in my research on him, he wrote a book that he authored in German. As people know, he is Canadian born, but he's the son of German immigrants.
Okay.
So he's really more known for coaching the Swiss national team than the Edmonton Oilers. And he has engineered a bunch of upsets in his capacity there. Now he's working for Southampton in the English Premier Soccer League as the chairman of that team.
Right.
So he sort of has left hockey. But what he didn't know is that he had authored this book that basically as a helpful guide to how to deal with life's problems. He authored it in German, and it was best-selling. And I was reading an article where it suggested that he has been, and I'm not surprised because of his charisma, a hot commodity on the speakers tour.
I can see that.
In Europe, because he comes in and he talks about using the lessons that he's learned through sports, applying them to life's problems.
It's a German book.
Yeah, it's in German, and it says the story that I read about it said it had been translated into French as well, but it never said anything about English. But it's pretty clear that this guy is a very fascinating human being, and I hope somehow we can get him back in the league. I mean, not maybe just in the coaching capacity, but who knows? I mean, could he work for the league? Is there any way to get this guy back? Because don't we need more guys like that?
Yeah, we do.
I mean,
no question about it. When I hear him talk, it's obvious.
Yeah, there's more to life than thing. And with regard to his age, he's 57. But what's Babcock? 53, 52?
Something like that.
Yeah, Lindy Ruff, I think, is 56.
57 is a good age for
Joel Quenneville, I believe, is 58. So,
that's perfect.
And don't we always say 60 is the new 50? So,
absolutely.
I'm over 60, so I like to say that.
Donald Trump's really old, right? I mean, I mean, you can be old and still, be successful in this world. Yeah, I think that's completely interesting. And you can see where he would be a good speaker, I guess. And in German, and that's got to tell you something. If you can be a good speaker in German, that is his language, not necessarily his first language. I guess he grew up with German immigrants, so I guess he learned both equally. But
yeah, I'm sure.
He wrote a book in it, so obviously. But the German's seems like a tough language to be inspirational in.
Well, for some reason that sounds like a crazy statement. I understand exactly what
you're talking about.
It's
just it's a really rough. It's a harsh language. I don't know. It's hard to tell, you're going to be okay, I love you in German. It seems like it would be like, or whatever. It'd be crazy.
It's actually
yeah, right, whatever. There you have it. So moving on to Crosby, because I think that it transitions nicely into Crosby and this game tonight, because, as much as you look at the Germans, the Team Europe team, and you say, okay, they could get a goal or two tonight and jump out on them and like they almost did the other night if Price had made some saves. You ask how many goals they can actually. Canada could just say, okay, we'll give you 3 goals, and Canada would score 4 goals if they gave them 5 goals. But Canada scores 6 goals. It seems like there's no limit to what Canada could come from behind on this team. So and mainly because Crosby, if everybody else is falling apart, Crosby is not falling apart.
Well,
that line is insane.
Well, the thing is, Eck, I mean, this is the perception, and like I said, I watched most of the game. That was probably Canada's worst performance of the tournament, and they still won 3-1.
Yeah, no, they still won it, and it was never really in question. It just,
Right. So the expectation tonight is in a game where, like I said, a lot of these players, they just want this. They want this over with. They want to win. They want to, and then they want to go back to their team. I think this is like a situation where you're putting the pedal to the metal, and it's not going to be 3-1. It's going to be 6-1. I mean, now Europe can control that, because if they play a responsible defensive game, then it's going to be tough for Canada, even with all the talent that they have.
They don't control it to a point, though. I mean,
right.
If Canada wants to do that, that's going to be. I mean, at the end of the day, you're looking at these 4 lines that are all better than any single team's best line in hockey, going against Seidenberg, Ehrhoff,
Chara, Yost
is looking slower, of course. Chara, who's played incredibly well. I thought Sekera, what they're calling him now, who's kept playing incredibly well. And these other defensemen who are not. This is not a defense that should be able to come anywhere close to stopping that offense.
Well, I don't think they can either. And one point that I should make that I didn't make earlier, I took a walk from the Air Canada Center up toward the Hockey Hall of Fame, and I was listening to the conversations as I walked up the hill there, and I was struck by everybody was talking about the World Cup. So in Toronto, this is big.
No,
this is still very, very big. That doesn't matter who. I mean, it could be playing a Pee-wee team, from Philadelphia, and
they're still the best players in the world playing in Toronto,
so
and that matters.
They are definitely into it here. But the one thing the other night I thought was interesting is the team didn't play very well, but that top line was going. What Crosby was working, and what he's done in this tournament, in my mind, is just not that there was any doubt, but he's just reconfirmed that he's the best player in the game, and I think by a country mile. If you look, I mean, I was trying to keep track. I'd lost track of the number of people who referred to him as the best player in the world. Then it was Steven Stamkos and Brent Burns, and I think John Tavares said it as well. There are numerous players, and these guys are all superstars in their own right, and they're referring to that. I don't think the players themselves think there's any doubt of who the best player is. And if you look at the way he's playing now, what I find the most remarkable is he's 29 years old. So that means he is definitely in the second part of his career. And yet I find that he's still improving. Like, I think he is a better player today than he was in what would be considered his prime years. And his ability to crank it up when it's really needed. And playing with Marchand and Bergeron, he's made both of those guys. Those are both exceptional players. Bergeron is one of the best all-around players in the game. I love how he plays on both sides of the puck. And Marchand is, we were talking the other day. He reminds me of a little Pat Verbeek, style of player. And I just think he's had a terrific tournament as well. But well, let me just finish this up. But I want to say is, since 2009, we have seen, since in 2008, if you want to say he got to the finals that year, but since 2009, he's won 2 Stanley Cup championships. Right. He's won 2 Olympic gold medals. He's won a world championship. He has won the Conn Smythe Trophy as the MVP, and he's won scoring title, and he's been MVP. He's got all this stuff that he's done. Like, it's really remarkable. Not only is he the best player in the league, but he's now up there with, there'll never be anybody quite like Gordie Howe or Gretzky, but he's in their neighborhood now. Like, he's mentioned with those guys. Like, he's had just an unbelievable career, and he's only 29 years old.
What a slacker! But the funny thing is, and this tournament has been the first time. I mean, remember 2010. He really didn't play that great, but he got the game-winning. He got the tournament-winning goal, and everybody, and that's immortalized. 2014, again, it was the struggle with the line mates. He played well, but he played, he almost in a way played, a shutdown role rather than a standout offensive role. The fact that they finally found the combo that took advantage of his skills with Marchand and Bergeron. If they go to the Olympics in 2018, Mike Babcock is the coach, I don't think there's any question who the line mates are going to be, because this worked so well.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And I think part of his greatness is the fact that look at last season. I mean, Connor Sherry, who deserves a lot of credit for stepping into that lineup and really being a factor in their playoff run, but he has no business being Sidney Crosby's winger.
Yeah.
And what other player at that level of greatness, would accept without complaint, getting an unproven rookie who doesn't really accent. Other than he's got great speed, but he doesn't offer a physical presence or an experience or anything of that nature.
Right.
But by putting him there, it allowed the talent on the Penguins to be spread, and because Crosby, among everything else, is a good captain, he accepted that and made the best of it, and still was able to be the MVP.
I know.
I mean, that's just really remarkable. And I say all that knowing full well that every time that he does everything, it seems like the fan base is split down the middle about him. It's a real love-hate relationship with Sidney Crosby, to be sure. And no one understands that better than me because I live in the Detroit area where he is persona non grata. So,
or Philadelphia.
Philadelphia.
No, they're two.
But I mean, it's one of those things that even the folks in those cities, the Detroit or Philadelphia,
right.
Once he's retired, they're going to be telling their grandkids about, hey, look, I saw Crosby play, and he was incredible.
That goes across the pantheon of sports because, I mean, Derek Jeter a couple years ago in Boston, there's nobody that Boston Red Sox fans hated more than Derek Jeter.
Exactly.
They cheered him in the last time he played at Fenway because they respected what kind of player he was and as a worthy opponent. Tonight at Yankee Stadium, it's David Ortiz's final game at Yankee Stadium. I would be shocked if the fans at Yankee Stadium, even though they don't like David Ortiz, but they respect the fact that this guy was a great player, and I will bet that they will give him a standing ovation. I think it will be the same thing in Philadelphia or Detroit or wherever after Crosby's career is over with, that he will be respected greatly in those cities.
Oh, for sure. I mean, no one's hated more than Yager in Philadelphia. Flat out. I mean, he used to get whistled at relentlessly in Philadelphia because of his long hair. He and Ron Duguay were the two guys that just got torn apart in Philly when I was a kid. And, and of course he was loved when he played there. And also remember Mario Lemieux coming back after the cancer in Philadelphia, one of the famous
standing ovation.
Yeah, that was incredible. And you're right. I mean, fans know this is a Hall of Game. They know this is for fun. We're going to hate you now, but they know they don't really hate him. They just, I mean, there are some idiots out there who do, but, it flat out, I've told many people this, and people hate to hear it, that Claude Giroux and Crosby are good friends, that they like each other very much. And, people, that can't be true. We hate that. That can't possibly. I'm like, no, it is true. I mean, they're close, and they will battle it out. Claude will battle it out with him every time. But it's hard to really hate Sidney Crosby. He doesn't really do anything to make you hate him.
This is a hockey show, but let's talk about Big Papi for just a second.
Yeah.
What I love most about Big Papi is that he looks like he could be a standout in the recreation softball league. Yeah. And yet he is a unbelievable, and anyone who watched him closely this season, major league player. It's just phenomenal what he's accomplished. And it seemed to me the older he got, the more consistent he got. There were holes in his prime. I thought there were kind of holes in his game, but in recent years, he's just been unbelievable. His ability to produce.
I'll always remember that come from behind 3-0 series against.
Thank you for bringing that up.
One of your favorite moments, Mike, as a Yankees fan, but
I really appreciate you bringing.
Oh my gosh, what he did in that series, and just that's legendary. That's the kind of stuff that
The thing that's most amazing about his career, and I mean, there are people who are questioning him retiring because he's having such a fantastic year. He's hitting over 300. I think he has over 30 home runs. He's, that team still revolves around him. But if you look at him, and I've watched the 2 games at Yankee Stadium the last couple nights, he can barely move. He can't play the field anymore. He's a full-time DH, and whenever it's a ground ball, he basically doesn't run it out because his knees are shot. So he's doing this, you know, if he has to beat out a ground ball first base, good luck. He's doing this with his physical nature diminishing, but he's still a great ball player. And, you know, we'll see whether the Red Sox will win or not. I hope not, because I'm not a fan of theirs, but he's a great player, no doubt.
Let's go back, Doc, for a second. So I just lost my spot, but apparently let's talk about some of these RFAs, because that's the story really right now, and that's what I'll be getting back to tomorrow when we go back to rumors and have all that kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
So Kucherov has made it known, according to I forget who wrote it, but it's all mentioned.
Joe Smith from Tampa Bay, who works for the Tampa Bay Times.
Right. That he's not going to go to camp. Right. He's going to pull out of camp. And Gaudreau right now isn't in camp. However, there's questions on whether that's just because he wouldn't be in camp already anyway, because of him coming back from the World Cup.
Right.
I'd be surprised if Gaudreau held out. I don't see him as a holdout type of guy, but.
Well, it's not really a holdout if you don't have a contract, as the PA will point out.
Right.
But you know, I always think that these RFAs are usually just much ado about nothing. I mean, you know, they're going to eventually get done. It's always about money, and you know, there are always some issues. You know, like the Trouba case, where it goes beyond dollars. That there are other issues there. He's the third right-handed shot defenseman behind you know, Bufflin and Myers, and he doesn't like that role. Even though he's third in minutes, he doesn't want to switch to the left side, and he wants to get some power play time, and it's a little more complicated than that.
He knows how important right-handed defensemen are everywhere else.
Well, yeah, and he knows if he goes somewhere else, he can play in the top pairing, and instead of playing 23 minutes, which is pretty good, he can play 25 minutes.
Right.
And he could be on the number one power play unit because he doesn't really get some. You know, I don't think this is going to get resolved with Trouba very quickly either. I mean, the only, for a bunch of reasons. Number one, there's no easy fit. I keep seeing everyone writing about, well, you know, he'd be great on the Bruins, or great on the Red Wings, or great on the Rangers, or great on the Avalanche. But when I look at those teams and you try to sort out, you know, for one thing, they want back a left shot defenseman.
Right.
Well, there are plenty of those, but they want them in the same age grouping with the same level of potential. So when are you going to get that? And, you know, the Anaheim Ducks are not going to trade, you know, Hampus Lindholm, who's for Trouba. You know, he's more, you know, accomplished at this point. So anyway.
And a guy like Cam Fowler only has 2 years left in his contract, so, you know, it's not an asset that Winnipeg could, you know, hold on to for more than 2 years if he doesn't want to be in Winnipeg. The thing that's weird about, and just touching on Kucherov, which you were mentioning, Eck, purportedly he's balking at the bridge deal. He wants a 6-year deal at around $6 million, and the way the Lightning are structured right now, after re-signing Stamkos, after re-signing Hedman, they still haven't traded Bishop. There's no cap room for them to do this, so they would have to, you know. And I don't see Kucherov, even if he was amenable to taking a bridge deal, taking significantly less than that kind of amount. I mean, he'd probably want $4 million a year on a bridge deal. So Tampa Bay is in a real pickle here.
Yeah, but even that, like, let's if we could call up there, because I looked at this the other day. You know, essentially what it would mean if they gave him $6 million a year is they're probably going to have to trade, you know, a player just because they're not that far off. You know, they you know, it's not like they have to clear out $6 million. I think they only have to clear out about $1 million or $1.5 million. And it just means they're going to have to use some younger players this season, and he's worth that amount of money. That's why I think it's going to get done, because they know his value. He knows his value. It's just a matter of trying to get him in for the least amount as possible to make the burden, you know, less straining than it would otherwise be. And then, you know, it's always about the cap. I mean, in Anaheim, this Lindholm deal, what's lost in all this is, and people forget this, Anaheim is not a cap team. Like, they do not go to the ceiling. So, you know, I keep reading, well, they got all this room, and no, that's not, they just feel, I mean, they're losing money in Anaheim. So they don't go all the way to the cap. So they got to fit him in under a budget, and that's the only issue. But the Kucherov thing will eventually get done. And, you know, it may cost somebody, a veteran player, a spot on the roster, but you got to have Kucherov more than you got to have some.
Than anybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
He's a pretty valuable player.
and that's your core. And if you get it done, then you have Stamkos, Kucherov, and Hedman done. You're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, and then you're gonna get Ben Bishop off your books one way or the other.
Right, one way or the other.
Yeah,
even if
because
you just let him go.
Yeah, if you just let him go. I mean,
And then next year, Steve Yzerman has Palat, Tyler Johnson, and Drouin to sign. So, and they're all RFAs. So, I mean, his work is not over with. But
that's just part and parcel of keeping the team together. I mean,
Right.
those things. If it goes up a little bit, and we'll see. But I mean, that's why. Nobody said it was easy when you took that job. You got to work at it.
Right.
So.
Now, the dynamic that's interesting is with all of these defensemen. I mean, you mentioned Lindholm, and there was a report that came out this morning that Lindholm he's looking for the 8-year max deal. He's looking for $6 million a year. Ristolainen is looking for more than that. We know about Trouba, and I think it was Bob McKenzie from TSN who said, a lot of managers are looking at the Seth Jones contract in Columbus and the Morgan Riley deal in Toronto and using that as a baseline. And, some of these defensemen don't want to use that contract as the baseline. They want to use Ekblad's contract where he's making $7.5 million. So you've got a $2.5 million disparity here, and all these players are trying to get closer to Ekblad than they are to Riley and Jones.
None of them are really close to Ekblad.
No, that is the point. So
I mean, Ekblad isn't in a league by himself. Ekblad is the Crosby of defensemen, right? So that's where he is. I mean, he might have been the best defenseman in this tournament here. And if he doesn't go home with a concussion, I think we're watching North America play Canada tonight. We're all planning on staying until Sunday. So I mean, I think that really changed. I think that changed everything. Ekblad against I really believe against Sweden would have mattered. He just matters a lot. I mean, you can't compare it, to Ekblad. I mean, Morgan Riley's contract, that's something that these guys should be looking at. I think that makes sense.
Well, I honestly think that some general managers should be patting Lou Lamoriello on the back, because based on the way Riley wasn't as good as Ekblad in the World Cup, but he was pretty damn good.
He had his moments where he was really good.
He is a very good player.
He's a very good player.
Yeah. That was a team-friendly sign.
Yeah, no, it was for sure. And, really surprising given that Toronto had all that money too. That's why I was kind of surprised that Toronto's smart, and like you said, Lou Lamoriello is particularly smart. Gaudreau is another case altogether. I've heard, I know just today, earlier this morning, McKenzie and people were saying Gaudreau is not even close. It's not even anywhere near it. I don't know if you've heard anything. I heard that it might be closer than you think, that there are some, things going on behind the scenes, mainly Calgary themselves trying to figure out where Gaudreau sits in their whole world now, having come back from, the World Cup. And does he deserve more than Monahan, which I think that the feeling is he does. Maybe before the World Cup, their feeling was he might not. He might be in the same boat. But so it feels like, I feel as if, even though the sides aren't really talking yet, you can see this thing resolving. It doesn't feel like it's going to go crazy. I mean, because Gaudreau and Kucherov, could they be offer sheeted? I mean, both these players are.
Gaudreau can't. Gaudreau cannot be offer sheeted.
Can't be, right.
There's he only played 2 full years in the league, and because of that, he can't be offer sheeted. But Kucherov could, and I don't know if I see it going in that direction though.
The problem with offer sheets now is even in the old system they weren't very likely, but in the new system, if the idea is you have to hurt the other team so badly that they won't sign it. Well, you're hurting yourself when you do that.
Yeah.
And teams that
need giving up all this first round draft picks.
Well, and your cap is screwed up.
Yeah.
Because you usually have to make the contract so onerous that they won't sign it, and that's even impossible to do because most teams are not going to allow you to take their best player. So, most GMs, I think maybe all of them, see this as just a fruitless exercise.
Yeah, it's expensive to do too. It costs like $100,000 to put an offer sheet together. I've talked to people about that, which is really surprising. But it does cost a lot of money that you never get back just to put it together. If ever there was anyone who was in the right spot for this, it would be Kucherov right now because of where Tampa is, because of the players they have to sign in the future, like Mike's saying. But
what could you do? I mean, if you gave him too much money, it would still hurt you.
It would hurt you, exactly.
Unless you give him $10 or $11 million or something
Right.
that crazy.
Right.
And the compensation.
Just throw out to give him $7 million. Okay, that's a number that probably.
But they would just match.
They would probably just match. Or if you're Tampa, would you sit back and say
No, you'd match.
you'd match? I mean, you wouldn't sit back and say, "I'll take
For $7 million?
Yeah.
that 3 first-round draft picks." Or something like that?
No, it's two ones, a 2, and a 3, I believe. I think for $7 million, it's that.
And you just wouldn't even consider that. He's just too valuable. You're too close to winning it all.
Right.
And $7 million is only $1 million over. And you're going to hate the team that did it, but you're going to do that in a minute. With no hesitation whatsoever.
Yeah.
And the other team knows that. That's the other problem.
Yeah.
In a situation like Trouba, I mean, we've talked many a time about the Shea Weber situation and the fact that Weber was willing to go to Philadelphia, but if Nashville matched, he was obviously willing to go back to Nashville. In the case of Jacob Trouba, his agent Overhart is trying to procure an offer sheet. He doesn't want to go back to Winnipeg. At least he's made it clear that he doesn't want to go back to Winnipeg. So he would have to make an offer sheet so that would guarantee that Winnipeg would never match it. And I don't know if there's an offer sheet out there that you could do that.
Well, no, because again, it just screws up your own.
Really
and I've had GMs tell that to me. Like, why would we do an offer sheet where that would also throw our salary cap at whack? Because he says, I guarantee you, the minute you give some new guy more money than your stars are already getting, they're going to be in my office going, what's going on?
Right. And that's going to mess up things too. Yeah. Now I was trying to look today, and because it's interesting, because we have a few games of preseason together now, and I've been trying to get, and it's so hard, man. The stats on the NHL on NHL.com are really frustrating these days. Because I was trying to find the preseason stats. It should be simple enough to find, right? Last night, for example, in the Philadelphia, Travis Konechny had 2 goals, and he looked great. I watched that game. The other night, Provorov played 28 minutes in a preseason game for the Flyers. That was kind of ridiculous.
It's funny. I talked to Bill Meltzer this morning and asked him what was how Philadelphia played, and he said all the Provorov and Konechny, they all played well, but the opposition they played was pretty much AHL caliber. So, and I think
that is the case.
Right. I mean, like Mitch Marner played very well for Toronto in their first game in Halifax against Ottawa, but Ottawa played a lineup that was basically the same lineup that they played at the rookie tournament a couple weekends ago. So, you have to temper the excitement that you have of a good performance from a player you have a lot of expectations for, because you don't know what they're really playing against. If Mitch Marner does that late in the preseason, then I think Leaf fans would have a reason to be excited, and same thing for Flyers fans as well.
Yeah, I mean, you were talking earlier about Red Wings fans and Bruins fans.
Well, the Avalanche and Red Wings have both had 2 good games, but when you look at the rosters, it's not guys that are going to be playing in the the show.
Right. So, does anybody want to guess who the top goal scorer is? I found this not on NHL.com, but on CBS Sports. Who the top goal scorer is so far in the NHL preseason? This is a good one. You can see it here, so you know what's going on. But don't look if you can't see it.
No, it's not.
But Kevin Shattenkirk has 3 goals in the NHL preseason. I mean, the much
trade him now.
Lines, Kevin Shattenkirk, right? Points. Here's points. How many? So you can see this here. So in the top point guy in 2 games played, this guy has 6 points. Would be the St. Louis Blue, Kenny Agostino, 6 points in 2 games played. Nathan Beaulieu, the defenseman, 4 points in his first game as a Canadian, first preseason game of defenseman. That's pretty impressive.
And Nathan Beaulieu is not an offensive defenseman, so it's let's again temper the excitement here. I mean,
Tom Gilbert is the 5th leading scorer in the NHL right now. That's something he probably never expected to be said.
Yeah.
To the Kings, but he has 4 points in 2 games. And Sam Gagner, the Blue Jackets, has 4 points in 2 games.
Well, I mean,
the Blues has 4 points in 1 game. The Blues must have had a blowout. They must have blown somebody out. That's my experience.
For some reason, I think it was Colorado, but I'm not 100% sure.
I did like the Blue Jackets signing of Gagner.
Oh, I thought so too.
Yeah, like if you're bringing him in to be a role player, he is a professional.
Yeah.
He's a professional player. He understands the game. He knows how it works. And he'll be helpful to that team. I like that signing.
Yeah, no, I thought so too, and they got it for nothing.
Yeah,
like $850,000.
right.
And last year for the Flyers, without Sam Gagner, I've said this before, they would not have made the playoffs. They literally he scored big goals and made big plays for them down the stretch.
Yeah.
He won a couple games for them. They were 1 point or 2 points away from not making the playoffs. I was really kind of disappointed the Flyers didn't hold on to him, and I thought the Blue Jackets made a fantastic trade there. So,
ironically, and Pierre-Luc Dubois may make the Blue Jackets, or they may send him back to junior. It's really undetermined. He's third pick in the draft. You would think he'd have a pretty good chance. But a guy like Gagner, I mean, if they did send Dubois back to junior, his role could be significantly expanded. Without Ryan Johansson there, their number one center is Alexander Wenberg, and then probably Dubinsky's the number two. So, you could see a Gagner be a top 6 forward for that team. It's very possible.
Yeah, I mean, it is possible. Now, Samuel Blais, who's number 3 in the NHL, another Blue, so they must have been a big game, put 4 points together in 11 minutes. That's pretty impressive. But not as impressive as Phil Verone from Ottawa, who apparently, according to this website, put up 4 points without any playing time at all.
Well, no, but NHL.com did not collate stats for the game in Halifax, even an hour after the game.
Okay, so there's no playing time for that game.
Phil Verone is a former Buffalo Sabre, Rochester Amherst player who went to Ottawa, and is a veteran guy. I think he's 26 or 27 years old, so I don't think there's much of a chance of him making the Senators, but he did score pretty well in the game against Toronto.
I mean, is there anybody on this list that we can think about, like as we said, Gagner? I mean, anybody on this list is crazy. I mean, Hartnell had three points in one game.
Yeah,
Detroit had 3 points in one game.
Yeah, no, I did know that.
I think you may look at this list later on in preseason and say that this guy or that guy might have a chance, but after one game or 2 games, it's really
for sure. And it's
What I find the most interesting right now, I mean, most teams only played one exhibition game, is the fact that we were mentioning it before the show, is that a couple teams signed veteran defensemen yesterday. Dennis Seidenberg signing with the Islanders for $1 million. Kyle signing with New Jersey for $1.2 million, or $1.25 million. These were guys who were out there who are UFAs, and they didn't take training camp invites. They were waiting for the one-way contract for the guaranteed deal, and the teams that couldn't make those. Chris Russell is still out there, and I'm wondering when that's going to happen.
Quincy signed too, right, Kyle?
Quincy signed with New Jersey.
Yeah.
Quincy with New Jersey and Seidenberg with the Islanders.
I imagine Ehrhoff will sign with somebody too.
Yeah, he's played fine here. He'll get a look as well.
I mean, then that's what's interesting about it. Normally, you get in the preseason, you get the new scoring leaders. You can see some players that you expect to be up there, but with all the players who played in the World Cup of Hockey out of this, basically, it really is an interesting group. And you try to see if there's anybody, because right now this is the kind of stuff that fans just freak out. They love. I mean, this is like when a player gets 4 points in one game. That's a huge deal, right? New player, and Konechny last night scoring 2 goals. It was against AHL quality talent. There's no question. I mean, I think with Braden Schenn, people ask me if Konechny is going to stick, and I think he could stick for like 9 games, maybe. Maybe do that 9-game thing, especially with Braden Schenn being suspended for the first 3 games of the season. That also plays into it. Remember that suspension hangs over from before. So, and the Flyers' first 3 games are on the road. The Flyers of all places start in LA as their home opener.
Wow.
Which is just an odd one. And the Flyers fans will be happy to know that they don't play the Devils until late December, which is really weird. That's usually a team the Flyers feel like they play all the time. They don't play the Devils until late December. They're going to play them a lot in 2017, that means. So, when we turn the year.
Sort of like that. Tonight in St. Catharines, tomorrow in Buffalo, the Leafs play the Sabres back-to-back. Austin Matthews will make his debut in one of those 2 games. The Leafs play the Sabres in Buffalo 3 times. The first one is in November, and then the last 2 games are in the last 2 weeks of the season. So they go the entire year.
Wow. Yeah.
So, 4 months in between one game and the next one.
Wow, that is crazy. All right, well, that's about all the time we have anyway for today. But definitely, guys, I'm going to be writing, and definitely check out Kevin Allen at USA Today. for all your great hockey stuff. He's got some really cool stories coming up that I'm talking to him about your predictions. They're coming up down the line.
Yeah, we're projecting all the point totals for all the teams, which is really, really difficult.
A fun thing to do.
Yeah, it's a higher math. As I like.
The line you gave me last night was really funny. I'm almost to, how many wins did you have to get to make it work?
1,230 wins. Yeah,
it has to be, because you're actually doing wins, losses. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's really so.
We're gonna have to do our over-unders for the regular season. We're gonna have to do that again.
Oh yeah. I got destroyed in that last year, by the way. I was awful in my predictions. I mean, the only thing I got right, I did get the Sharks right to go to the finals. So I got that going, but that was it.
Yeah.
Well, I will tell you that because my boss was a little surprised. I'm actually bullish on a team that will drive Mike crazy. I'm bullish on the Canadians. I really liked. With Carey Price being healthy and with the addition of Shaw and Weber, it's going to make that team much more difficult to play against. I think they'll get to the net now, which they couldn't. And, Radulov was a good roll of the dice. Who knows whether it'll work out. But, and the other team I really like, again, I'm just talking about in terms of improvement, is Calgary Flames. Adding Elliott to that mix, and those younger players are going to be better.
Yeah.
And I just think they're going to create some fun in the Pacific Division.
I agree.
Carey Price is healthy. That's all that matters.
Yeah, and there'll be a better team too. Like,
I agree.
In the long term, the Weber deal is not good for Montreal.
Yes.
But in the short term, he's much more of a Terrian player.
Subban, so. And short term, it's for a good 4 or 5 years, it's a good deal for Montreal. It's not
I wouldn't say
2 to 3.
Yeah, I'd say that's more like it.
We'll see. Well, time will tell. But I think Weber is pretty damn good in shape. Like, I think Weber's going to go a long time.
He's going to play, but I think
he'll play at a high level for a while.
Yeah.
Well, it's not shape. I mean, of course he'll stay in shape. You hope he'll stay in shape. It's the speed. I mean, look at Zdeno Chara now as opposed to 3 years ago. Now he's pretty much a liability for the Brew. I mean, he's still a great player. He still can do things, but he can be skated around.
Yeah, I mean, Shea Weber's biggest weakness, I pointed this out the other night, and I don't know if you've seen it, Mike, but it made me crazy watching him play for Nashville, because he is the best defenseman and one of the best defensemen in the league, obviously, at steering traffic out there. Like, he tells everybody where to go. That's what Shea Weber's good at. He's a quarterback back there. He's pointing, you pick this guy up, pick that guy up. He's more than just himself. But he does love to go down on the ice very close to the goalie. Like, there's one thing about blocking shots out further. Shea Weber likes to block shots that are really close to the goalie, and because he's such a big guy, that can get in the way. I mean, it actually can get. I've seen it with Pecorine. I saw it the other night in the second period against Team Europe with Carey Price at one point, where Shea Weber goes down to block a shot, so he's lying across the crease, and that's a big guy to lie that close to the crease. So it's something that he's such a competitor. He just does this. He always has. But that's something I think that as the year goes on, it's going to be interesting if Price talks to him about that, because Price is so exact on everything he does.
Right.
Where Rene is sort of like, all out and being crazy to the wind. But Price is a fine-tuned machine, and if he's in Price's way, he's going to know about it. versus Pecorine, who would step over him basically. But so we'll see tonight. Stay tuned. I think the game starts at 8 tonight, right?
Yep.
Good Lord knows why, but it starts at 8 o'clock tonight. And we'll be down there in a little bit. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We'll talk to you then.